How's everybody doing? This is Fast Eddie Fear. I wanted to record what will hopefully be a brief video about LateSwap. There's obviously a huge amount of debate going on about it, and frankly, the average level of understanding of almost any of the concepts involved by all the participants, even people for whom I would expect a lot better, is incredibly low. So, without any agenda or preference, I'm just hoping to educate people on a couple things and raise the level of debate so we can actually talk about what we should be talking about, because we're not. I've heard the same argument happen about 100 times when guy says I like LateSwap, another guy says I don't. Guy one says, damn it, I just want LateSwap, and the other guy says, well, you know, it gives such a huge advantage to guys who can sit at their computer all night and check news. And the other guy goes, no, you don't have to do that. I just check my phone for about 2 minutes before every game starts. There's basically three groups of people when LateSwap exists. Group one, which is larger than you would think, is people who never swap. There are a surprising number of people who never swap, and they're just not winning, but they never swap. And there's even a decent chunk of those who don't know that you can swap. If you run a DraftKings survey, there's a double-digit percentage of people who don't realize that you can make changes once games have started. Because they came from FanDuel when you couldn't, or various other reasons. It's not necessarily that intuitive. Then there's group two, and that's really who I'm talking to, which is the people who late swap for the purpose of responding to an injury or a late scratch. Then there's group three, the people who late swap correctly. So people in group two are basically the people I'm talking to here, and I'm telling you that many of you are passionately advocating for something that is screwing you day after day after day because you don't understand it. LateSwap does about 9 things, one of which is replacing injured dude with another dude. But expert players, people in group one, are using LateSwap constantly, day after day after day, minute after minute, event after event, to grab a little advantage from you over and over. Again, you're checking your phone for 5 minutes, you're just looking at your 8 dudes, and about 6 days a week, your 8 dudes are going to be good. The 7th day, your guy's going to be out and you get to LateSwap, congratulations. But 6 days a week, all the news is helping group one. Norman Powell is going to move to the bench tonight and CJ Miles is going to get the start. Oh, that's interesting. Norman Powell has like a 3% higher career usage rate off the bench than he does starting. He goes from like 19% to 22%. And I previously had Lou Williams projected a little bit higher, but with that news, I'm going to take out Lou Williams and put in Norman Powell. Takes just a little chunk from you, okay? Oh, here's my cash lineup, and it's in a lot of 50-50s, and I have Vooch in it. Vooch went off and destroyed in the first game. He put up 70 fantasy points. I'm way ahead of the field. I'm going to make these changes lower down the card and take out some of these bargain guys and put in a couple more solid plays. Guys who maybe I wouldn't project for as many points but have a much safer floor. So I'm taking out this guy and putting in this guy because I'm so far ahead of the field. Takes a little more edge from you there. Or conversely, God, Vooch, like last night, sucked and he put up 28. I have got to catch up. Let me take out some of these safe guys and throw in the Kent Bazemores of the world. Guys who I think can really hit an upside and maybe catch up because otherwise, you know, these head-to-heads are dead, and these 50-50s are... Takes a little more edge from you. You're not doing anything. Your 6 guys are healthy. Your 8 guys are healthy. So the 7th day of a week comes in. Congratulations, you checked your phone at 7:50 for the 8 o'clock game, and Jimmy Butler's out, and you made a late swap. That feels great. You were still probably getting worked. Because, again, he's sitting there looking for the news constantly. He probably knew before you by 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. He might have known at 7:40. And you're just making a swap. I'm taking out Jimmy Butler, and I'm putting in Andrew Wiggins because he's about the same price, decent matchup with Indiana. Let's just throw Andrew Wiggins in there. He's like, oh wow, so much stuff I can do here now. I can do a double swap or a triple swap. Muhammad is getting the start now. I can replace one of my other slots with him or slot him in for Jimmy, and now that lets me upgrade to Cousins, and I wanted more exposure to that late game. Plus, I found out this other thing. You're just swapping a dude for a dude. So, even on that 7th day of the week, yeah, it didn't work for you. It added another decision point where the people who are not necessarily any smarter than you, but more invested than you, got to, get over on you once again. And that's the hilarious irony of this. When last night happened, when Jimmy Butler got scratched and really no one could know about it, or at least to my knowledge, no beat reporter mentioned anything about it. No one said he was feeling well or had an upper respiratory infection or anything until after lock. That was probably the only time in the whole week that you, Group 2, were actually playing even with Group 1. That was probably it. And you are fighting like hell to get rid of that, many of you, so you can be strictly disadvantaged 100% of the time. And again, one day of the week is significant. It's not like I don't understand the want or the need to do something. There was, what it reminds me most of is I was in New York City on the night before 9/11, on the 10th of September 2001. I'm old. I owned my own business, and I drove from New York back to upstate New York where I lived that night. And I woke up the next morning, and 9/11 happened. And I spent a couple months where I just took off work entirely and volunteered. And one of the places I volunteered was the Red Cross. And one of the most interesting parts of that experience was the fact that we didn't need the blood. We had 500, 1,000 people online. And you're sitting there on calls, and it's, obviously a damnable tragedy, but we had 3,000 dead people and only a couple hundred injured people. And now all of a sudden we got 50,000 units of blood. So you're on phone calls with, you hear the governor of the state and the people who are in charge of the entire Red Cross saying, look, take everything you can. You guys are mental health care assistants now. People are in a chaotic world and planes are flying into skyscrapers. You got to feel like you can do something. And so we were there to make people feel better by letting them do something. And that's what those of you who only use LateSwap to swap out Jimmy Butler for Andrew Wiggins are doing. You are trying to make yourself feel better by doing something. But you should understand that if you're that group who uses LateSwap, not to its full advantage at all, and just to make injury swaps, you are at a disadvantage, and you are fighting something that will decrease your ROI in the long term. So like the last thing I want to address is people say, well, why don't they offer it? The reason the sites don't offer LateSwap for NBA shouldn't surprise anyone. It's because it costs them money. And I hear everyone going, bullshit! If you swapped around the price pools, just as many people would play tonight in the LateSwap contest. I agree. That's not how it's costing them money. There's two industry concepts, well, not really industry concepts, general business concepts of churn and retention. Retention is a guy who, you're working on your customer retention, guy who plays on DraftKings on Tuesday. You want to come back and play on DraftKings on Wednesday. And churn is the guy who doesn't come back, and you have to get a new customer for that guy. Well, NBA is already the easiest expert level sport for DFS. There used to be a joke, nobody loses in NBA, and it was pretty close to that for a while because it's the easiest thing for someone who's paying attention to master. It's got a very simple statistic in minutes that denotes some sort of production almost every day, and just your range of outcomes is so much smaller. LeBron James is going to score 30 to 70 fantasy points a night. Mike Trout is going to score 0 to 70 fantasy points a night because NBA has tons of small scoring occurrences. NFL football touchdowns are a largely distortive effect because there's so many points when they occur. There are at least 6, and frequently when there's a catch involved, there are 10, 20 points on one damn play. Major League Baseball, you get 5 at-bats. Basketball, there's 100 scoring opportunities, and you score 1 here and 1.5 here and +3 there and -0.5 there. You get a much narrower range of outcomes. So you take that, and then you add to it multi-positional eligibility, and you add to it flex spots, and you add to it LateSwap, and the amount of luck has fallen enough, and the predominance of skill has raised enough that your churn goes up incredibly significantly. So a guy who played 9 weeks of MLB and donated to DraftKings and to you, Group 1, plays 2 weeks of NBA because he just can't win. So he either runs out of money or just realizes, fuck, I can't win this sport. It's incredibly difficult. So, yeah, I suppose that's basically it. So, there's nothing wrong with wanting LateSwap, even if it isn't good for you. I perfectly well support that. My #1 rule of playing DFS has always been that it's enjoyable. And it is not enjoyable having your night just disappear in a truly random event. But I just want to say, you should know what it is you're pushing for.